It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
I don't know, the word that comes to mind, this is rough, but it's spiritual arrogance. I don't know, it strikes me that way. It's like, for example, here's my own personal, I'll tell my own personal story, that when I want to talk, when I find myself talking about you and how people ought to do it, or even we's, I lose my experience of I, and that's really all I have to relay. Look, Jeff, the reason I love your book is you talk about you. You don't tell me what to do. You tell me how it feels to be you.
Right.
And each of us has a unique experience, and there's allowing for the dignity of my personal experience. And somehow, in the guru process, that slips away.
Well, you know, I mean, so much of it, I mean, I use the term enrealment because that, for me, just makes more sense.
I love it.
When you talk about enlightenment, when you talk about the light, first of all, and only the light as your idea of an inclusive consciousness, you're not living in the whole of reality. That's the first problem. It has a paternalistic quality to it, the pulling away from the world, the finding a rarefied state. You know, I think the women have a much different view that I really resonate with a lot more, which is that really there isn't a heightened experience. There's an inclusive experience. It's a relational experience. It's
transcend and include.
It's transcending. It's chaotic magnificence. It is all of these things happening at one time. Even
That's
on
a good word.
That is a really good phrase.
Chaotic
I like that.
I got a video on YouTube. You'd like it, where I paint on my walls, and it was writing was like that. It just came through the body like that, and it wasn't all light. It was shadowy, and it was tough, and it was rustic, and it was edgy, and then it was beautiful. And to me, you know, for me, spirituality means reality. So the goal for me is to be able to live at all aspects, like what Barnet's talking about, to be in my body again, to be in my breath again, to be doing the laundry again, to be at the same time connecting to some unified consciousness field where I'm aware of some bigger picture. All of that happening at one time. So many of these models got set up as avoidance trips.
That's
and then
right.
they get manipulated like that, and they're not really taking us in the direction. You know, on my best day, I feel like I get to like level 7 out of 100. Let's like to put it to numbers. I mean, most of the day I'm hovering around 4 or 5, and then I get to 7. If you get there and you have an experience of some kind of unified moment, you realize that there are so many other levels. And I've had it in lovemaking more than anywhere else where I've...
Well, that's where we have an opportunity to tap in to an innate sense of balance and experience of balance, where we are in the body. The mental function does not collapse, but it is restored to a balanced relationship with beingness. And we tap into varying degrees, and per individual, we tap into a heightened sense of excitement, of arousal, of into that field of generative possibility, that ecstatic, passionate field. And we tap into passion, the passion that lies beyond the structure, this realm of structured imagination. And I think that anytime I'll speak personally, anytime I have been tempted to give away my power to a guru or to a teacher, it has been, I have not been well served by it. And the most impactful, the most powerful mentors and friends that I have had along the many years of my own practice and journey have been very firm in not accepting my willingness to give up my power to them. They've been very clear about that is not their function, that their function is to walk with me as a friend, but not to disempower me and not to give me, not to replace my structures with more structures.
There's a level of, we've spoken about this in the past, Barnett, about generosity. It's a generous offer. Like there's a real generosity of spirit.
And it is respectful because it has a compassion that is born out of a particular experience. It's an active caring that's born out of a particular experience that can identify with the experience of another. And so there is this informed generosity of spirit that doesn't deny anyone their experience, but reaches out in a very loving, non-judging way, one that does affirms who you are, sees who you are.
I love it.
Creates safety, does its best to reduce the possibility of humiliation and shame, and yet does not rob another of their experience, but beckons the way of, just as a dad, I remember beckoning my small daughter, just beckoning her and encouraging her to take one faltering step after another,
knowing that in some very real way she's bound to fall.
She's bound to fall and pick up and bound to fall, but you become a beacon. You hold a frequency, and the other frequencies lift. But if you're holding a frequency of you can't do it, or you're somewhat, you're not empowered by yourself.
I know when you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, we want everyone to be soul empowered. I mean, we want everyone self-referencing. I really, even with this work and writing and people, coming and projecting like I know, I never say I know. I know that I don't know, right? I mean, it's all I can do to get through the day and figure out what the heck I'm doing here, know. To pretend that I'm a seer or you're, it just seems silly to me, and it is disempowering. And
well, I'm going to call you to task on that one.
Go for it.
Because you're a pretty deep guy.
I think there's a paradox there, and some of all of this has to do, I believe, with becoming large enough to hold the paradox, not simply the negative with the positive, but also to acknowledge, in your case, I certainly am listening to you. I've read some of your books so far. It's very clear to me that you have wisdom. And so I'm able to see that in you, and I'm also able to appreciate your humility around saying, and also in the big scheme of things, in the shifting schemes of things, I know nothing. So I would hold it that one can be the fool and the wise fool simultaneously.
Well, right, and I find this confusing. I'm getting a little better. I mean, I never ever wanted to imagine myself sitting above or beyond or separate, like teacher to student. Writing comes through me. I honor it. I trust it. I assume it's going where it's supposed to go, and it's certainly bringing me into being on a spiritual level by honoring the calling. But so I'm stepping more into it, but I'm very careful to never for a moment pretend that I know someone else's path. I think that's when it gets risky.
That is when it gets risky.
But it's easy to slip into. I mean, I'll cop to it. So, the idea that I would never do that, there's a part of me that does want to do that. A part of me wants to be right. A part of me wants to know stuff. I mean, I have to relate to those aspects of me along the way and resist the temptation.
And you become relational to the part that has that big ego, as I certainly do.
Absolutely.
And I make a space for it, and I am not in judgment of it. I hold it.
But I surely don't want to become that. I don't want that to be my identity.
I don't want to be identified with it. I don't want it driving my bus.
That's it.
But I do acknowledge that your work is beautiful, and that I have been impacted by it, and I am quite certain that were it not for the case that you are on your own path and you are aware that in the sharing of your journey you are impacting others, you would not be writing.
Right. I mean, I picked the wrong path if my goal is not
to hide under a shell
at all. Right?